Good evening and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be discussing and I'm going to be sharing my final predictions for the Critics' Choice. Now, the Critics' Choice are going to be this Friday. They were supposed to be held a week after the Golden Globes, but because of the whole LA fires, it got delayed to this Friday. So the winners have been kind of sitting on the shelf for a little bit. So some things that have emerged recently, like the whole Emilia Perez, Carla Sofia Gaston controversy and stuff, this will not really apply here as much as the voting ended before that all emerged. The Critics' Choice, they usually are kind of perceived as trying to predict the Oscars and so forth. They like going with the stuff that aligns with the critics. And a lot of the times, when people are making their predictions and stuff, they usually go with what you would expect. They won't really throw anyone off, but sometimes they will throw in surprises. There's been some years in which they've done ties, like Bong Joon-ho and Sam Mendes with tying for director, for instance. But again, that stuff is kind of rare to see, so you just never know. So starting off with Best Picture, this one I think is interesting. Because The Brutalist is number one on Gold Derby, and it does make sense. It did recently win the Golden Globe, and I think that's why people were going for it for number one on Gold Derby. And I do have it at number one, but I think the runner-up is clearly Anora. Anora does have a good case for it to win the Critics' Choice. It's been the critics' favorite. I think it's won the most critics' Best Picture awards or whatever throughout critics groups, and it is a film that it appeals to critics, and so I think that could definitely win. I could definitely easily see Anora win, especially since it's gonna win original screenplay. But I am gonna stick with The Brutalist because the voting poll I think ended 2 days after the Golden Globes aired, so I think The Brutalist could end up winning here, especially since I think it's gonna win director, which we'll discuss that really fast. But Anora, I do think can easily win here. I could see it winning, but I'm gonna stick with The Brutalist. I think it's really close between them both, and either one of them could end up winning. I would be happy with either one. So those are the two that I am considering. You also got Conclave, which tied Wicked for the most nominations here at the Critics' Choice. But I don't think they're going to go for Conclave. I don't see them going for Wicked. They're definitely not going to go for Emilia Perez. That's for sure. And then you also got The Substance, A Complete Unknown, Sing Sing, Dune, and Nickel Boys, which I think they're all just unlikely to happen. Moving on to Best Director, this one is obvious. It's going to be Brady Corbin. In fact, I think he's going to end up sweeping, and he'll win DGA. He's going to win the Critics' Choice. He'll win BAFTA, and ultimately win the Oscar. There could be an upset somewhere else down the road, but Critics' Choice, again, they going with what you expect, and it's going to be Brady Corbin. For Best Actress, again, this one is very interesting. I think if Mikey Madison wins Best Actress, I think Anora is going to win Best Picture at the Critics' Choice. But here's the thing. The Substance did do pretty well here. It got things that it was expected to get. And Demi Moore did give that whole speech at the Golden Globes and whatnot. And she's number one in Gold Derby. And I think I'm going to stick with Demi Moore. She just has the narrative behind her. And I do think critics in general do like her performance. And I think it may be enough for her to end up winning over Mikey Madison. But I would be really happy if Mikey Madison won this award. Even if she doesn't ultimately win the Oscar, it would be really cool to see Mikey Madison win something. And I think the Critics' Choice is the one place where she could win something. But I'm going to stick with Demi Moore. I hope that is Mikey Madison. I may change this last second on Gold Derby or Award Expert, and I reserve the right to do so. But I'm going to stick with Demi Moore for Best Actress. And I'm not really considering anyone else. It's going to be between one of those two. As for Best Actor, while I do think Timothée Chalamet could win the SAG, the Critics' Choice, especially the fact that they went with Brody at the Golden Globes, he's going to win the Critics' Choice. I think Brody's going to win the Critics' Choice. Especially if when I'm predicting Brutalist to win Best Picture, obviously Brody's gonna win. But I could still see the Brutalist not winning picture here. But Brody, I still think makes a lot of sense to win here. Ralph Fiennes, he could win because Conclave did get a lot of nominations here, but he just kind of seems like he's just, nominated in the category. Ralph Fiennes just doesn't seem like he's just gonna win anything at the end of the day. So I'm going with Brody here. Moving on to supporting actress. This one I think is very competitive between Saldana and Ariana Grande. Zoe Saldana won the Golden Globe, but that's because they loved Emilia Perez. The Critics' Choice didn't care for Emilia Perez as much, even though they did give it a lot of nominations. But you also have to keep in mind that the Critics' Choice, they do like predicting the Oscars, and especially after the Golden Globe win with Saldana, I think they're gonna go with her. But I could see them going for Ariana Grande. I mean, that is a very fun performance, and Ariana Grande is like so funny, and she's like so good in the film. She just fits in so well, and I think that's a character that people can connect to more, and I could see critics going for that. I think Ariana Grande, if she does win something, this is one of the awards that she could take, along with SAG too. But I'm gonna stick with Saldana just because the Critics' Choice, again, they like predicting the Oscars, and Saldana does make sense to win. Especially since this was before the whole Emilia Perez controversy, and she really isn't like part of that controversy anyways. So I'm gonna stick with her, but I would love to see Ariana Grande win. If I was choosing the winners here, I would be voting for Grande, but I'm gonna stick with Saldana. For supporting actor, this is going to Kieran Culkin. This is very clear. It's very obvious. He won the Golden Globe. And like I said in my last video, while I do think Kieran Culkin could lose somewhere, it's not going to be the Critics' Choice where we will see a surprise. It's just not going to be. Like, I think Guy Pearce is the runner-up at the Critics' Choice. But Norton and everyone else, I just don't think they have a chance. I think this is just going to clearly go to Kieran Culkin. And then original screenplay, not gonna spend much time on this. It's gonna be Anora. Like this is I think Sean Baker's award. I think that he's just gonna win original screenplay everywhere and ultimately win the Oscar. And yes, I know Anora didn't win the Critics' Choice, but it lost to Conclave, which is an adapted. So seems pretty clear that they were gonna go with Anora here. I think The Substance could maybe make a surprise that would be very interesting to see. But again, I still think it's very much of a long shot. And if Anora does win the Critics' Choice, it is going to win original screenplay. So I'm going to go with Anora. I think that just makes the most sense here. For adapted screenplay, I mean, Conclave won the Golden Globe, and it's going to win adapted screenplay. It's ultimately just going to win adapted screenplay at the end of the day. I mean, we'll see what happens at WGA if they try mixing things up and going with if they give it to Nickel Boys or A Complete Unknown, which isn't even nominated at the Critics' Choice, even though it has the Oscar. But at the Critics' Choice, Conclave is clearly going to win. Film ensemble, a lot of people do have Wicked at number 1. And it does make sense. It dominated the SAGs. It got the SAG Ensemble nomination. It's probably going to win SAG Ensemble. But at the Critics' Choice, they don't always go with the eventual SAG Ensemble winner. For example, last year, they gave it to Oppenheimer. That did win SAG Ensemble. But then the year before, they gave it to Glass Onion, which wasn't even nominated for SAG. But that had a big cast. And then Belfast won the year before that, which didn't win SAG Ensemble because they gave it to Coda, which wasn't even nominated at the Critics' Choice that year. And then I'll go back one more year, which was Chicago 7, which did with SAG Ensemble. So sometimes they align with SAG, sometimes they don't. And I think they're gonna go with Conclave here. That's what I'm going to be predicting. They did very much like Conclave, and I think it just makes a little bit more sense than Wicked, but I could easily just see Wicked winning. I wouldn't be opposed to that. But Conclave also had like a very solid cast, and everyone was just like really good in the film, and everyone was like perfect casted. So I'm gonna stick with Conclave, but wouldn't be surprised to see Wicked win. And then for young actor or actress, I really don't know what's gonna happen here. I kind of have a feeling that there isn't like a clear frontrunner, but number one in Gold Derby is Isaac Wang for Dee Dee, and I'm just gonna stick with that. I will say that Maisie Stella for My Old Ass has a chance of upsetting because that film has like kind of surprised at some guilds, especially getting like that WGA nomination. So I think she could surprise, but again, I'm just gonna stick with number one. I think it could clearly go to any of these ones. I'm not too invested in this category, so I'm just gonna stick with the number one. And then comedy film. Number one in Gold Derby is A Real Pain, and it's kind of interesting to see that because A Real Pain is more like a dramedy. It's not like a pure comedy, and I feel like a lot of the times in this category they go with like pure comedy films, like they don't go with stuff that's like dramedy. They won't always go with like best picture related stuff. Is what I'm trying to say. So, for example, Barbie won last year, which does make sense if that was a pure comedy film. But then the year before, you had Glass Onion that ended up winning. I think people were thinking it could have been Everywhere, Everywhere all at once, but they went with Glass Onion. Why? Because that fits their taste a little bit more. They also like going with stuff that that's like kind of feel good. And then the year before that, Licorice Pizza won, which was kind of interesting because I think people were thinking Don't Look Up was going to win. But then the year before that, they went with Palm Springs, which was really cool that they went with that, even though they could have gone with like Borat. So I am kind of going to take a risk here, and I'm actually going to go with Hitman. I think Hitman is more like a pure comedy sort of film, and I think it makes a little bit more sense for what aligns in this category. And again, Real Pain just kind of feels more like a dramedy, but I don't know. They could go any direction in this category. You got Saturday Night, Deadpool, Thelma, My Old Ass. I mean, who knows what's gonna win? But I'm gonna take a little bit of a risk here, and I'm gonna go with Hitman over A Real Pain. But wouldn't be surprised if A Real Pain just wins. And then animated feature, The Wild Robot's gonna win this. Okay, they usually like going with like normie mainstream stuff. And yes, Flo did win the Golden Globe. It could possibly win the BAFTA, even though I'm predicting Wallace and Gromit to win the BAFTA. But at the Critics' Choice, and the PGA, they usually go pretty normie, and they go with like mainstream stuff. And the Wild Robot is just a little bit more mainstreamy for them over Flo. And again, this was like somewhere in between before Flo ended up winning the Golden Globe. The Wild Robot, I think, just makes sense for the Critics' Choice to go with, frankly. So I'm going with The Wild Robot. And then for foreign language film, again, you have to keep in mind that this was before the voting poll ended, before the whole Emilia Perez controversy thing. And so while it may be tempting to go with I'm Still Here, they're going to go with Emilia Perez. Again, they like predicting the Oscars, and while I'm Still Here could win an international feature at the Oscars, I think the Critics' Choice are just going to go with Emilia Perez. It just makes sense. So I don't really have much to say there. I think it's just going to win. Again, you kind of have to go on a little bit of like a time machine here, per se. Moving on to the tech categories, we're going to go with cinematography. This is going to go to the Brutalist. This is pretty obvious. It's the frontrunner for Best Picture, and it's going to win. I don't really see anything else winning. Dune Part 2, I think, could win, but I don't see it happening. I don't see Nosferatu winning. I mean, that would be quite a shock. Nigga Boys would be inspiring. It's actually number 2 on Gold Derby, but I don't see that happening. It doesn't have the Oscar nomination, and yeah, this is going to go to the Brutalist. And if it doesn't go to the Brutalist, I'm going to be a little upset because the Brutalist has amazing cinematography, and it should be winning cinematography everywhere. But that's my personal opinion. Costume design, this is going to Wicked. I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's going to win. I don't see how anything else could possibly make an upset. Now, the category that I do think they could do something interesting is in editing. Now, Challengers is number one for editing, and it makes sense. It has a lot of fast-paced editing and stuff, but let's look at like some past winners and see if we can find if something else could possibly win. Last year they went with Oppenheimer. The year before that they went with Everything Everywhere. Those ended up winning editing. And then the year before that they went with like West Side Story, which was very, very weird. Even though Dune ended up winning the Oscar that year. And then the year before that they went with Sound of Metal and Trial of the Chicago 7. They like actually tied that year, which was very strange. And then 1917 even won editing, even though I didn't win the Oscar nomination. And then First Man as well. So I don't know. They're really weird with this category. I think maybe I will stick with Challengers actually. I was kind of thinking like maybe the Brutalists could win at first, but now looking past to the fast winners, I think Challengers would kind of fit their boat of them being weird. They do weird stuff in editing. They could give it to like Doom Part 2 even like, but I'm gonna go with Challengers, even though I would like to see the Brutalists win, but I don't know if that's gonna end up winning editing here and even at the Oscars at the end of the day. So I don't know, maybe the Brutalists is like a little bit of a long shot. I reserve the right to change my predictions. I really don't know what's gonna happen in this category. I'll just stick with Challengers. Hair and makeup, this is going to Substance. Pretty obvious. Nothing else is going to win. I don't see Wicked winning. Again, they go with kind of what you would expect, the Critics' Choice. So, moving on. And score. Even though Challengers is not nominated for score at the Oscars, they like scores that are fun and exciting. And Challengers has a very exciting score. And again, you have to keep in mind that this was like before the Oscar nominations, and Challengers won the Golden Globe too. And as I said in my last video, Challengers is probably going to win this award, and I'm going to go with Challengers. But I would prefer to see the Brutalists win, or even Conclave. I would prefer to see one of those two win, but I think they're going to go with Challengers. I think critics like that score more. But I could see an upset in this category. I could easily see Challengers just losing this. Same with editing, but I think for score, it makes sense for it to win. And then for song here, they could do something interesting here. They could go with like Challengers once again, Compress Repress. I actually like that song a lot. But that's kind of giving Challengers a little too many words. I would give it 3, and I don't think it's gonna win 3. I'm just going to stick with number 1, El Mal. I mean, it won the Golden Globe, and it's probably going to end up winning everything else. And are they really going to go with Kiss the Sky from Where I Wore About? I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. I think it's just going to go to El Mal. I'm just going to stick with that as front runner. It just kind of makes sense for it to win. Unless they pull a fast one on us and they choose Mi Camino instead, but I don't know. Sticking with El Mal. Production design. Not going to spend much time on this. It's going to be Wicked. Again, like I said in my last video, there's a chance that like the Brutalists could threaten to win this category, especially if it wins the BAFTA. But again, the Critics' Choice, they like to, predict the Oscars. So I'm going to stick with Wicked, and it should be winning here, honestly. And then I think this is the last one, visual effects. It's going to go to Dune. Dune's going to win this category. It's pretty clear. It's got great visual effects as well. Those are my predictions for the Critics' Choice. They're going to be this Friday. They could pull some surprises, or they could just like go super normie and maybe not have an effect on it. The categories I'm looking out for the most are like editing, score, actress, and best picture. Those are the categories where I think they could pull like a surprise. They could do something interesting, and maybe like another category we may not be thinking of. Because sometimes the Critics' Choice will pull a surprise, so you never know. But I'm gonna stick with those nominations. Let me know what you think of my predictions. Am I gonna be right? Am I gonna be wrong? Are they gonna go super normie? Are they gonna throw something crazy at us? Probably not. But But those are the critics' choice. So, what do you think the critics' favorite film of the year is?